Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. So I'll be honest, if there's a week that feels like a bit of a breather, for me, it's this one. Yes, we got an album bomb from Kanye and Kid Cudi under Kid See Ghost, but thanks to it actually being pretty good and not having an avalanche of other new arrivals, this week actually feels a little bit more restrained for once. Now, before Scorpion crashes in a couple weeks, I will take whatever I can get in that category. So, on the topic of Drake, let's start off with our top 10, where Nice for What regained the number one, basically on playing the margins. Streaming and YouTube gave just enough of an edge to compensate for peaking on the radio and bypass the stronger sales and airplay of Psycho by Post Malone featuring Ty Dolla $ign, forced back to number 2, not helped by its own set of radio losses. And while it's not there yet, I Like It by Cardi B, Bad Bunny, and J Balvin is certainly closing in at number 3. Strong sales ruling YouTube and surging on the radio and streaming. All it needs to do is close the gap right now, and it'll get there in a couple weeks. It will be on top, mark my words. Now at this point, God's Plan by Drake did rise up to number 4. Even despite peaking on the radio, it's still a YouTube monster and will have a very slow decline, but I would put money on it getting overtaken sooner rather than later, and the first suspect will be Girls Like You by Maroon 5 and Cardi B at number 5. Yeah, it did slip a bit in the margins, but how quickly it's gaining on airplay, it could rapidly get there. On the flip side, you got Lucid Dreams by Juice WRLD surging up on streaming alone to number 6. Yeah, it's got a bit of sales, but radio's not touching this whatsoever, and while it was projected incorrectly by Billboard that it would take the number 1, without stronger margins across the board, I just do not see that happening. It did blow past Boo'd Up by LMA at number 7, which has got good radio and streaming numbers and will probably have more longevity, but without sales, it's not really getting any higher. But thanks to the losses of Kanye's last album bomb, we do have some returns to the top 10. The Middle by Zedd, Maren Morrison, Grey at number 8, with good sales propping up the radio now in freefall. No Tears Left to Cry by Ariana Grande at number 9, which is still pretty consistently strong across the board and gaining. And Meant to Be by Baby Rexha and Florida Georgia Line at number 10, which just cannot die fast enough. So on that pleasant topic, we got our losers and dropouts. In the latter category, the only really big ones worth mentioning are New Freezer by Rich the Kid featuring Kendrick Lamar and Finesse by Bruno Mars and Cardi B, and both had respectable runs, albeit with only the latter likely making the year-end list for 2018. But even when you go to the losers, the list is a fair bit smaller than usual. Multiple album bombs have blown apart the weaker hits on the Hot 100, and thus the losers, they're a bit more predictable. Of course, Kanye took some major hits. All Mine fell to 31, Yikes to 40, Ghost Town to 60, Violent Crimes to 85, and Wouldn't Leave to 92. But then we had the losses for some surprising returns, like Beautiful Crazy by Luke Combs falling to 93, and Welcome to the Party by Diplo, French Montana, Lil Pump, and Zavia Ward going to 100. The only other two losers that I'm surprised with, they've lasted as long as they have, with Fake Love by BTS hitting 71, and Drip by Cardi B and Migos dribbling down to 96, neither which I can see lasting all that much longer. Now, what looks a fair bit more interesting are our gains and returning entries. First in the latter category being Minaj by Riek featuring Ozuna and Wizen at 83, and Babe by Sugarland featuring Taylor Swift at 95. The latter likely thanks to the video and the album dropping. I'll be talking about in the trailing edge, stay tuned for that. But our gains are a bit stranger. Yeah, I'm not surprised that Woman Amen by Dierks Bentley got a nice boost thanks to the album up to 53, or that Taste by Tyga and Offset seems to have some real traction up to 38, or even that Delicate by Taylor Swift has quietly been picked up a ton of radio up to 25. But I won't say that I'm happy to see Better Now by Post Malone rising across the board to 20, or that I wasn't caught off guard with Youngblood by 5 Seconds of Summer picking up some early traction to 79. You would think the boost would come next week, so stay tuned for that. Finally, we've got Mercy by Brett Young up to 63. It's got good sales, the radio seems on board, we will see how much higher it winds up going. But now on to our slightly more sparse list of new arrivals. Still, we've got 10 here, but we'll start off with number 90, I Know You by Lil Skies featuring Young Pinch.
You just wanna fuck me for the fame. She wanna fuck me cause I'm diamonds on my chain. Girl, I know you. You be out here playing all them games, girl. Don't you? Out here fucking with all of them lanes, yeah. Don't you? I know you.
You know what's funny? I've tended to be a fair bit kinder on Lil Skies than most critics have. Yeah, his content is not reinventing the wheel whatsoever when it comes to this sort of melodic trap song, but he's got a better grasp of melody than most, and I tend to gravitate more to that, so I'm a little more forgiving. That being said, that relies upon the melody actually being good, and the second we get these oily, off-kilter tones playing to the flat and oddly cheap-sounding trap beat, I'm a lot less forgiving here, especially when the entire track is all about bashing girls as gold diggers that they still feel compelled to brag that they're getting and stealing from you. A big problem with the song is Young Pinch, who leans much closer to the desaturated mumble rap lane and has a huge drag on Lil Skies, who actually has a personality, but when he's saying his diamonds are like piss and saying that he'd hit girls who would test him, yeah, there's a way to burn a lot of goodwill for me in a hurry, and it is this song. Not good at all. Next, number 88, Rich Sex by Nicki Minaj featuring Lil Wayne.
It ain't such a thing as broken handsome. Rich sex. If you let that broke nigga fuck, we tellin'. Rich sex. If you let that broke nigga fuck, we tellin'. Rich sex. If you let that broke nigga fuck, we tellin'. Rich sex. If you let that broke nigga fuck, we tellin'. Rich sex.
So is there anybody else who thinks that Nicki Minaj's single rollout for her upcoming album isn't making a lot of sense or isn't boding well? You'd think that Barbie Tings and Chun-Li would hold her over, but she pushed her album back to August and instead released a single with Lil Wayne, and yeah, no, I'm not a fan of this. With Nicki hammering on her message of only screwing guys with money into the ground with the bluntest language possible, and then Lil Wayne making it pretty damn explicit on his verse. And what's exasperating is that there isn't really any wit or flair to the song. With the sharp piano keys and the lumpy trap beat, this almost feels too cold and too calculated and about the furthest thing from fun, and Nicki Minaj and Lil Wayne rap on flows with a curtness that somehow makes their content feel even less appealing, especially when Nicki Minaj makes it plain that if this girl is getting it from a broke guy, she's gonna out that to everybody. Classy. So yeah, it might not be as unpleasant as the Lil Skies track, but man, it's not good either. It's certainly up there. Number 84, Lose It by Kane Brown.
My heart keeps skipping a beat. You're not close enough, so there's space between you and me. Let's lose it. The way you're dancing, swaying to the music, girl, that body and how you move it. Every time you cross my mind, girl, I lose it. Yeah, I lose it.
Oh man alive, I keep trying to give Kane Brown chances and I'm not sure why I do anymore. I mean, he's got a decent enough voice, and while I'm not sure you could tell by the overemphasis on overproduced drums and guitars that have no significant texture, he at least tries to bring in a banjo and fiddle for some more country texture. But the problem is that all of it is in service to another by-the-numbers bro country hookup track with a sort of flat pseudo-rap delivery that can't help but feel really clunky without any sort of significant low-end groove or bass line, which is a persistent issue with too much bro country that never gets its due attention. Tack on some ugly vocal production around the pre-choruses, and no, I'm sorry, can't get on board with this. Next, number 73, Kids See Ghosts by Kids See Ghosts.
Kids see ghosts sometimes. Spirit. Moving around, just moving around. Kids see ghosts sometimes. Kids see ghosts sometimes. Kids see ghosts. Spirit. Yeah, that's the king.
Okay, so as with previous album bombs, I reviewed Kids See Ghost last week, so I'm going to try and keep this relatively brief, and unfortunately we're starting off with one of the weaker cuts of the album. Oh, don't get me wrong, I like the eerie, muffled clink of the production and the deeper swells of atmosphere that almost remind me a little bit of In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins, and Mos Def's hook is appropriately meditative and melancholy, an okay balance for Kid Cudi's verse, but then we get Kanye's verse where despite a pretty good flow, we get a stream of bragging that just does not capture the same meditative, quasi-spiritual vibe, especially how he juxtaposes the fact that he's got a Bible by his bedside with the fact that he doesn't read it. Very telling. Couple that with Mos Def not really being all that impressive on his bridge, and I don't know, it's okay, it's fine, but there are better songs. Number 69, Cudi Montage by Kids See Ghosts. Oh man, I really wanted to like this the song a lot more. I mean, I like the Nirvana guitar sample. Kid Cudi has got some good smolder on his verse as he looks out at the wider world he can now see removed from his mental hell and pleads for a greater, higher salvation. And that juxtaposes with Mr. Hudson's response, speaking from the voice of God, and it picks up some real swell with the glittery synths that sounds really good around the hook. And then Kanye comes in with another good flow describing the real world violence that they now have to face after getting out of their own head, and ends the line referencing how the pardoning of Alice Johnson will inspire men. And if I thought that sentiment was painfully misguided last week, when I take a look at what the current president and his cronies are pushing now surrounding family separation at the border, yeah, that inspiration's not gonna take. I'm sorry, Kanye. Shame, because outside the real world connection, I think this is a pretty solid song, but that connection was made explicitly in the text. Now, thankfully, we got something a lot better with number 67, Fire by Kid C Ghost.
Act like you knew you done fail. Only you know how I feel, and only if you knew how I felt. Snipped a little booch off the nail, threw with mixed messages, through with the mail. Only a few in the field, little bit off for the real.
You know, the more I think about it, the more I think this might actually be my favorite song on Kid C Ghost. The rickety guitar phrases against the jingling groove that captures a parched, desiccated vibe before the faint flutes and the spacey touches spike around it. If the groove was something a little bit heavier overall, it'd be something close to what Swans had made circa To Be Kind, especially when you pair with the mental hell that both men must transcend in this song. It's a spiritual march, and ending it on the fractured guitar sample, it's a perfect way to capture that deeper struggle. So yeah, it's a great song, and it's definitely better than number 62, Freeee Ghost Town Part 2 by Kid C Ghost.
Guess what, baby? I feel free. Nothing hurts me anymore. Guess what, baby? I feel free.
Okay, look, there are things to like about this song. The choral blending and the integration of Ty Dolla $ign with Kid Cudi is excellent. The euphoria captured from the first Ghost Town is palpable and feels more structured against the wiry guitar tones and the lo-fi drums. And Kanye includes just enough spacey embellishments to highlight that warped quasi-spiritual vibe. But man, the wonky enunciation of free on the hook, it can't help but feel so damn goofy every damn time they do it. It's just oversold. I get why they do it. It's clearly intended to sound unconventional, defying all the established artistic norms, but they don't hit any sort of transcendent timbre to really make it work for me. It just takes me out of the song. Still, there's enough to like about this track, so it's alright. I'll take it. Number 47, Feel the Love by Kid C Ghost.
I can still feel the love. I can still feel the love. Feel the love.
I'll admit that, like pretty much everybody, I was not on board with the song at first. Yeah, the minimalist synth fizz behind Pusha T was solid, but his verse wasn't great in comparison with Daytona, and when you follow it with Kanye's trap scatting against Kid Cudi's hook, well, it's a lot to take in. But when you hear how the stuttered percussion kicks into the heavier, noisier march cadence, provides you some gated foundation for Kanye, and then you factor in those watery synth flutes and the faint guitars before the hook comes surging back, the song really hits real pathos in a potent way, especially when you consider Kanye's rage-filled spitting a biting indictment of Pusha T's nihilism. As Kid Cudi says, he can still feel the love, not succumb to desaturated numbness. So yeah, it's another great song, definitely like it. But then we get number 42, Fourth Dimension by Kid C Ghost.
It feels so good it should cost. Brought an alligator, I ain't talking Lacoste. Made me say, like a mix of Master P and Rick Ross.
So this is another song that I honestly wish I could like more than I do. The flows are solid from both MCs. Kanye takes the absurdity of his bragging about wealth and sex as a juxtaposition against the mental anguish and paranoia he feels. Looks like Santa's bringing all sorts of presents this year, especially with the references to swinging implying a far darker undercurrent, especially with all those wizened cackles. And yeah, Kid Cudi's verse is pretty good too in making that darkness more literal, but something about this just isn't quite clicking for me. Maybe it's a little bit too reliant on the rigid beat around the Louis Prima sample, or needs a little bit more to really flesh it out, or the fidelity of said sample might be even a little bit too lo-fi for Kanye to flip effectively, but I don't know, it's good, but it doesn't quite work all the way there for me. Just saying. And finally, number 39, Reborn by Kids See Ghosts.
Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Ain't no stress on me, Lord. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward.
I'm a little bit surprised that of all the songs from Kids See Ghosts, it was this one that caught traction. I mean, it's certainly the softest with the distant pianos and the lumbering knock of the lo-fi beat with the most immediately memorable hook, but it's also the most personal and downbeat, where Kanye West speaks plainly about the mingled contradictions he struggled with having bipolar and how he just doesn't want to be numb to the overall experiences in his bubble. He wants to have a little bit more of the freedom of expression there. And Kid Cudi realizing he has to take those internal steps to claw out of depression, that's powerful too, especially when the hook emphasized that sense of space and emptiness that comes after. That's not quite a moment of euphoria to be free, but a lingering ambiguity surrounds what can even come next, and thus he has to keep moving and trudging on to the unknown, be it good or ill. It's a song that carries some weighty topics, albeit maybe going on a little bit too long, but it sticks to the landing. Definitely one of the better songs here. And you know what? I think Reborn's gonna get honorable mention, with Best of the Week going to Fire for just that killer groove from Kids See Ghosts. It really just connects for me. Now, Worst of the Week, yeah, I Know You by Lil Skies featuring Young Pinch. This is a complete disappointment and an ugly as hell production and writing, with dishonorable mention going to Rich Sex by Nicki Minaj featuring Lil Wayne for almost being just as ugly. Next up, you know, I don't expect a Nas album bomb, but it'll be interesting how much Jay-Z and Beyonce impact things with their surprise album, so we'll have to see. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.